Everyone feared the Millionaire CEO until the new secretary arrived and did what no one had ever dared. Before we begin, leave a comment with the city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. The silence in the Walker Corporation lobby was so sharp you could hear the faint beep of the digital clock. No one dared breathe loudly near the executive elevator. Chloe Martinez hurried down the polished marble halls, balancing a stack of folders and a giant strawberry milkshake. It was her first week as executive secretary, and she was already 15 minutes late. Her heels tapped the floor like a nervous metronome. Sorry, she muttered, dodging stern executives who looked at her as if she were a pink alien. And then it happened. Her heels slipped on the flawless marble. Splash! The milkshake flew in slow motion, a perfect pink arc that landed on its target, the $3,000 Italian blue suit of Ethan Walker, the most feared CEO on the West Coast. The entire lobby froze. 30 employees stopped breathing at once. Some receptionists covered their mouths to keep from laughing, while others panicked. Ethan just stood there, strawberry dripping from his shoulders down to his leather shoes, his expression a mix of fury and total disbelief. Chloe slowly got up, looked at the mess, and blurted out the first thing that came to her mind. Congratulations, now your limited edition, strawberry-flavored CEO. The silence grew even heavier. An employee coughed nervously in the back. Ethan stared at her for several long seconds. His blue eyes were a storm and curiosity all at once. No one, absolutely no one, ever dared make a joke about him. Least of all a brand new secretary who had just turned him into a walking dessert. You. He pointed his finger, still dripping. Office. Now. Chloe straightened her skirt and answered with a crooked smile. Fine, but if you're going to fire me, at least let me clean this first. Otherwise it'll look like some kind of sweet crime scene. 2 security guards moved closer, but Ethan motioned for them to stop. He kept staring at her as if trying to crack an impossible code. 20th floor. 5 minutes. His voice was controlled, but there was something different in his tone. As Ethan disappeared into the executive elevator, leaving pink streaks across the floor, Chloe noticed everyone still staring at her. She shrugged and said to no one in particular, "Well, at least now I know he's not a vampire. Vampires don't drink milkshakes." A young receptionist let out a muffled laugh and pretended to cough. Chloe picked up her folders from the floor, ignoring the pink stains, and walked toward the elevator. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw the security cameras turning to follow her every move. Great, she muttered. First week on the job and it's already turning into an action movie. I just hope they have popcorn upstairs. The elevator rose slowly, each floor tightening the tension. On the 20th floor, the doors opened to a hallway that looked more like an art gallery. Expensive paintings, thick carpet, absolute silence. Ethan's private secretary, a woman in her 50s with a face that allowed no nonsense, pointed to a massive oak door. "He's waiting," she said, as if announcing an execution. Chloe knocked 3 times. "Come in." The office was bigger than her entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows displayed Los Angeles stretching to the horizon. Ethan stood with his back to her, still in his stained suit, staring at the city. "Do you know how many people have worked in this company over the past 5 years?" he asked without turning. "A lot?" Chloe guessed, closing the door. "Thousands. And do you know how many have dared throw a drink at me? Let me guess, 0? Ethan finally turned. There was something different in his eyes now. It wasn't just anger anymore. 0. He stepped closer. "So explain one thing to me, Chloe Martinez. What exactly do you think you're doing here?" She tilted her head, thoughtful. "Well, considering I just turned the most powerful CEO in Los Angeles into a dessert, I'd say I'm making history." The corner of his mouth twitched almost imperceptibly. "Almost. You're not afraid of me. Should I be?" Chloe crossed her arms. "I mean, besides the milkshake, what else can I do? Throw a donut at you." For the first time in years, Ethan Walker didn't know what to say. And in that loaded silence, he realized something. This woman had just done what no executive, investor, or rival had managed in an entire decade. She had completely caught him off guard. No one had ever left Ethan Walker speechless before. But there he was, staring at a secretary who treated his office like an amusement park. Chloe walked through the room as if she owned the place, completely ignoring the tension in the air. She ran her hand over the marble desk, examined the expensive paintings, and stopped in front of the wall filled with trophies. "Wow, how many most intimidating CEO awards do you have here?" she asked, picking up a golden statuette. "Or is this one for best performance in making people tremble?" Ethan folded his arms, trying to regain control of the situation. "Sit down." His voice was firm, but there was a crack in his authority. "I'd rather stand, thank you. Your chairs look like they're ready to judge me." Chloe kept exploring the office like a curious tourist. He took a deep breath. No employee had ever dared disobey a direct order from him. "I want a formal apology for what happened downstairs." Chloe stopped walking and raised an eyebrow at him. "Feel me? Like a bow? Because I can try, but I can't promise I won't laugh." "I'm serious." "So am I," she gestured dramatically. "Look at this place. It's like you hired the sun itself to light your office. Your furniture shines more than you do." Ethan blinked twice. It was the second time in 5 minutes someone had completely disarmed him. "Aren't you supposed to be flattering me right now?" "Why? You talk as if you're in a job interview." Chloe walked closer to the panoramic window. "Wow, from here you can see all of Hollywood Hills. I bet you stand here imagining yourself as the king of Los Angeles." "I don't imagine. I am." The words came out more defensive than he intended. Chloe let out a genuine laugh that echoed through the silent office. "Really? Because kings are usually more, I don't know, majestic? You're more like a princess scared of a milkshake." Ethan's jaw tightened. He took 2 steps toward her, closing the space between them. "You have no idea who you're provoking. A man who uses too much hair gel and owns more paintings than a museum?" Chloe tilted her head, pretending to think. "Oh, and someone who clearly needs help choosing ties that look less funereal." She walked to a slightly crooked frame on the wall and adjusted it carefully. "There. Now your office has a little less toxic perfection." Ethan watched her in silence. There was something mesmerizing about the way she moved through his private space without asking for permission. As if she belonged there. "Why aren't you afraid?" The question came out softer than he expected. Chloe turned to face him, and for the first time since she had entered, her smile faded a little. "Afraid of what? A man who wears $3,000 suits but doesn't know how to talk to a normal person?" The silence stretched between them like an elastic band ready to snap. Ethan could feel something shifting in the air, a current of energy he had never experienced before. "You're not like the others," he admitted, more to himself than to her. "Thank you, I guess." Chloe crossed her arms. "Look, if you want to fire me, fine, but at least admit that was the most interesting milkshake you've ever had." Ethan walked to his desk and opened a drawer. He pulled out a thick envelope and held it out to her. "I'm not firing you." Chloe looked at the envelope with suspicion. "What is this? My professional death certificate?" "It's an offer." "What kind of offer?" She took the envelope, but didn't open it. Ethan leaned against the desk, arms crossed. His blue eyes shone with something she couldn't quite read. "The kind that will completely change your life." Chloe's heart raced without warning. There was something in his voice, in the way he looked at her, that made the air in the office feel heavier. "And if I say no?" A dangerous smile formed at the corner of Ethan's mouth. "Then you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what you missed." 24 hours later, Chloe still couldn't believe she had agreed to meet Ethan Walker at a cafe in Venice Beach, especially after reading the most absurd proposal of her life. The golden California sun lit the outdoor tables while skateboarders passed by on the sidewalk, moving as if they were dancing. Chloe arrived 5 minutes late, carrying the envelope like it was a bomb about to explode. Ethan was already sitting at a corner table, sunglasses on, wearing a casual shirt that probably cost more than her rent. Even dressed simply, he still looked like he had stepped out of a magazine. "So," Chloe dropped into the chair across from him, "you want me to pretend to be your fiancé? Straight to the point? I like that." Ethan removed his sunglasses, revealing those blue eyes that seemed to hold dangerous secrets. "Dangerous and completely crazy." She waved the envelope in the air. "Seriously, Ethan, what kind of person hires a fake fiancé?" "The kind who needs to convince the board of directors that he's become responsible and stable." Chloe let out a laugh so loud that several people turned their heads. Responsible? You? The man who drinks $1,000 coffee and probably has an assistant just to pick out his socks. It's not $1,000, he muttered defensively. Oh, sorry, $999 then. She leaned forward. Explain something. Why me? Why not hire a professional actress? Ethan took a sip of coffee and looked straight at her. Because actresses know how to act. You're real. Real and unemployed if I don't accept this, right? It's not blackmail. It's an opportunity. Chloe opened the envelope and flipped through the papers again, shaking her head. It says here I would have to wear specific clothes, speak only when necessary, and… She stopped, incredulous. Smile, but not too much. The charity auction is an important event. It has to look real. Then I'll pick the flavor of the lie. She closed the envelope. Sorry, but I only act in tragedies, and looking closely, your love life already looks like one. Ethan leaned forward, closing the distance between them. $50,000. Chloe nearly choked on the smoothie she had ordered. Excuse me? For 3 weeks of work, plus a $20,000 bonus if we completely convince the board. Her jaw literally dropped. $70,000 to pretend I like you? To pretend you love me, he corrected, and something in his tone made her stomach twist strangely. Chloe glanced around as if expecting a hidden camera to pop out. And what exactly does this charity auction raise money for? Funds for young entrepreneurs with low income, people who want to start their own business but don't have the initial capital. For a moment, her ironic mask slipped. Really? Completely real. She drummed her fingers on the table, thoughtful. Okay, let's say I accept this madness. What are the rules? Ethan pulled another paper from his pocket. Limited public appearances, 3 business dinners, the auction, and… He hesitated. And? A weekend at my family's home in Napa Valley. Chloe raised an eyebrow. What kind of family? The kind that will interrogate you like you're a murder suspect. Perfect. I love a good session of psychological torture. She flipped through the contract again. Wait, it says here that if I lie about anything personal, I lose all the money? It's to keep credibility. Ethan Walker, if I lie during this deal, I won't just lose the money. She leaned forward with a mischievous smile. I'll spill milkshake again, and this time, I'll aim for the tie. For the first time since they had met, Ethan truly laughed. A deep, genuine sound that made something strange happen in Chloe's chest. Deal then? Chloe looked at his extended hand, then at the contract, then at those blue eyes that seemed to hide much more than they revealed. If I say yes, do you promise not to try to turn me into a porcelain doll? I promise I'll try not to break you in the process. And I promise to try not to break you either. They shook hands, and Chloe felt an electric current shoot up her arm. Ethan seemed to feel it too, because he held her hand a second longer than necessary. Welcome to my life, fake fiancé. Welcome to chaos, fake groom. Across the street, hidden behind a post, Victoria Sterling lowered her sunglasses and smiled. A smile with nothing friendly about it. Interesting, she murmured, pulling her phone from her pocket. Very interesting. Their first public appearance as a couple would be the trial by fire that would determine if Chloe could survive Ethan Walker's world. And she was about to find out she had bitten off more than she could chew. The Walker Corporation conference room looked like a spaceship, with glass walls and projectors that made everything shine like a science fiction movie. 20 serious executives were seated around a table that cost more than a house. Chloe entered beside Ethan, wearing a blue dress he had personally chosen. She felt like a child dressed up for a school play. Relax, she whispered to him. It's just a meeting, not a trial. For me it's the same thing, he replied, nervously adjusting his tie. The strange thing was that Ethan Walker, the man who ruled boardrooms like a king, actually looked nervous. His hands trembled almost imperceptibly as he organized the papers. Gentlemen, Ethan began, I would like to present our new marketing strategy for the 3rd quarter. And then something happened that no one expected. Ethan froze, completely. He looked at the slides, then at the executives, then at the papers, and simply stopped talking. The silence in the room grew so heavy you could hear the air conditioner breathing. Chloe realized he was panicking. The powerful CEO was going completely blank in front of his own employees. Without a second thought, she stood up. What my fiancé is trying to say, she began with a confident smile, is that you're about to witness the coolest revolution of the year. 20 pairs of eyes turned to her. Ethan looked at her as if she had just saved his life. Translating into human language, Chloe pointed at the first slide. You want people to buy more things, right? Then stop talking low. A gray-haired executive cleared his throat. Mrs. Martinez, with all due respect, marketing isn't that simple. Of course it is. Chloe walked up to the projector. Look at this. Maximization of market penetration through synergistic engagement strategies. Does anyone understand that? Total silence. Exactly. Do you know what it really means? We want people to like our product so much they'll tell their friends. She gestured with energy. See? No complicated words, and everyone gets it. The executives began to exchange interested looks. Ethan watched her quietly, torn between irritation and something that looked very much like fascination. And this chart here, Chloe continued, showing exponential growth projections. That's just a fancy way of saying we expect to sell a lot more next year. A young executive let out a muffled laugh. Fewer teeth, more people, Chloe whispered to Ethan. A shark's smile scares them. He adjusted his expression immediately. As my fiancé was explaining, Ethan took back control, now more relaxed. We need to simplify our communication. Exactly, Chloe clapped her hands. Marketing is like telling a story, and nobody wants to hear a story told by a dictionary. This time, the whole room laughed. You have amazing products, she went on, but you're hiding them behind words that even you don't fully understand. The gray-haired executive leaned forward. And what would you suggest, miss? Speak like normal human beings. Tell people why your products are great, not why they're high-performance, disruptive innovations. Chloe made air quotes. Disruption doesn't pay the bills. Simplicity does. Ethan looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You disarm me, he murmured softly, just for her. That was the idea, she answered with a playful smile. The meeting went on with the executives asking questions directly to Chloe as if she were the marketing expert. Ethan stayed mostly silent, just watching as she turned his formal meeting into a lively conversation. When they left the room, he pulled her into a quiet corner of the hallway. What was that? That was me saving your presentation because you froze like an old computer. Ethan ran his hand through his hair, messing it up for the first time since she'd met him. This has never happened before. Relax, everyone freezes sometimes, even powerful, intimidating CEOs. Chloe straightened his tie. But next time, remember, you're talking to people, not machines. He looked at her hands, fixing his tie, and felt something strange in his chest. Why did you do that? Because we're a team now, remember? At least until the end of the contract. On the other side of the glass hallway, Victoria Sterling was writing everything down on an electronic notepad, secretly photographing every intimate gesture between them. The next morning, Chloe woke up to her phone exploding with notifications. The Los Angeles Business Journal headline showed her photo next to Ethan, the CEO's mysterious fiancé, who is the woman who won the most desired heart in Los Angeles. Great, she muttered, still in her pajamas. Now I'm officially famous for lying. What she didn't know was that this was only the first move in a much more dangerous game Victoria Sterling had started to play. In less than 24 hours, Chloe Martinez had become the most talked-about person in Los Angeles. And it wasn't exactly for the reason she would have liked. The Walker Corporation lobby looked like an anthill in panic. Employees whispered in groups. Smartphones lit up with the same photo plastered across every gossip site in the city. She and Ethan walking out of the company together, under the headline, From Secretary to Queen, the Corporate Fairy Tale. Chloe walked down the hallway, trying to ignore the curious stares and the barely hidden smiles. Some employees held back laughter as she passed, and she knew exactly why. The CEO milkshake meme had gone viral overnight. At least now I know I have a future as a comedian, she whispered to herself as she stepped into the executive elevator. On the 20th floor, the tension was sharp. Ethan's personal secretary didn't even look at her properly, just pointed to the conference room with an expression that said, "Good luck, you'll need it." Through the glass walls, Chloe saw Ethan sitting at an oval table, surrounded by 5 men in suits who looked like vultures waiting to attack. "This situation is completely out of control," one of them said, waving a tablet. "The company's stock has dropped 2 points since yesterday." "It's temporary," Ethan replied, but his voice sounded tired. "Temporary?" A white-haired executive slammed his fist on the table. "Ethan, you need to understand the seriousness of this. She's a complete nobody." Chloe knocked once and walked in without waiting for an answer. "Sorry to interrupt this public shaming session, but I brought coffee for everyone." She set a tray on the table, smiling as if she were at a birthday party. The room fell silent instantly. "Miss Martinez," the white-haired man glared at her with disdain. "I believe you were not invited to this meeting." "True," she agreed, pouring coffee as if she owned the place. "But since you're discussing my personal life, I thought I should take part." Ethan looked at her with an expression somewhere between admiration and despair. "Chloe, now let me speak." She turned to the executives. "I know you think I'm some date crasher who came out of nowhere to ruin Ethan's perfect reputation." "That's not what," one of them began. "It's exactly what you think." Chloe folded her arms. "My mom collects coupons, not headlines. I wear clothes on sale, not designer brands. And yes, I work to make a living. Imagine that." The discomfort in the room was tangible. "But you know what's funny? In 2 days of being around me, Ethan did better in meetings than he has in the past 6 months. Coincidence?" Ethan slowly stood up. "Gentlemen, I believe this meeting is over." "Ethan, you can't just—" "I can, and I will." He walked to Chloe's side. "And let me make one thing very clear. No one humiliates her without going through me first." The white-haired man stood up, furious. "You are making a mistake that could cost you your position in this company." "Then let it cost me." Ethan looked at each of them. "This meeting is over." The executives left grumbling, but Chloe noticed that some looked at her with something that resembled hidden respect. When they were finally alone, she turned to Ethan. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." He ran a hand through his hair, messing it up again. "They have no right to talk to you like that." "Ethan, I'm literally being paid to pretend to be your fiancé. They do have the right to question that. Not the way they were doing it." Chloe felt something warm spread through her chest. There was a sincerity in his voice that caught her off guard. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For defending me. It's been a long time since anyone did that." They looked at each other in silence, in a moment that seemed to stretch on forever. Ethan's phone rang, breaking the spell. "Walker." Chloe saw his face change as he listened to the person on the other end. "I understand. Yes, we'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and looked at her with a serious expression. "That was my press assistant. There's a crowd of reporters in front of the building." "Journalists? Because of us?" "Apparently, someone leaked the whole story, from the milkshake to the contract." Chloe's stomach dropped. "What do you mean, the contract?" "They know our relationship is fake." For the first time since this charade began, Chloe felt real fear. "What are we going to do?" Ethan walked to the window and looked down at the crowd below. Cameras, microphones, and dozens of reporters waiting for them. "We're going down together," he said, holding out his hand to her. "Together?" "Together." His eyes met hers. "If we're going down, we go down as a team." Chloe looked at his hand, then at the chaos outside, then at those blue eyes that had turned her world upside down. "All right," she said, taking his hand. "But if any reporter asks about my beauty secrets, I'll say it's just soap and water." Ethan laughed, a genuine sound that cut through the tension of the moment. "Ready?" "Never." They walked toward the elevator, hand in hand, unaware that across the city, Victoria Sterling was smiling as she watched the live news. "Perfect," she murmured. "Exactly as I planned." After 3 hours facing a crowd of reporters hungry for scandal, the last thing Chloe expected was to end up in Ethan Walker's penthouse. Yet there she was, staring out the floor-to-ceiling window as Los Angeles sparkled like diamonds scattered in the dark. "So," she said, dropping onto the leather sofa that probably cost more than a car, "we survived the journalistic apocalypse." Ethan poured 2 glasses of wine, but his hands trembled almost imperceptibly. They were intense. "Intense?" Chloe laughed. "Ethan, they asked if I was a Russian spy disguised as a secretary. That went beyond intense and straight into completely insane." He sat down beside her, keeping a cautious distance, or at least trying to. "Sorry for dragging you into this." "Hey." Chloe turned to face him. Remember our deal? Team, right? There was something different in his eyes, a vulnerability she had never seen before. Why did you do it? He asked suddenly. Do what? Agree to pretend to be my fiancé. $70,000 doesn't explain all this madness. Chloe took a sip of wine, buying herself a moment to think. Honestly? Because you seemed like a rich, lonely guy who needed help looking human. Lonely? Ethan, you have a penthouse the size of a mall and live alone. Even your sofa looks like it's judging us. He laughed, but it was a sad sound. My parents sent me to boarding school when I was 8, said it was for my own good. I guess I never learned how to connect with people. Chloe felt a pang in her chest. Without thinking, she reached out and touched his hand. That's terrible. It's the life I know. Ethan looked at their hands together. Until you showed up with that milkshake and ruined everything. Sorry for messing up your perfectly organized life. Don't apologize. He turned toward her, closing the space between them. You make me forget who I'm supposed to be. The air in the room changed completely. Suddenly, Chloe was acutely aware of how close he was, how his blue eyes looked different in the soft light of the penthouse. And who are you supposed to be? Cold, calculating, someone who doesn't care what others think. Look at that, she whispered. The robot has a heart. Apparently. They were leaning closer without realizing it, faces just inches apart, the wine forgotten on the table, Los Angeles glowing quietly outside. Chloe, this is a terrible idea. Probably the worst, but neither of them moved away. His lips were almost touching hers when the phone rang. Loud, insistent, shattering the moment. Ethan closed his eyes, clearly frustrated. Ignore it, Chloe whispered. The phone kept ringing. It could be important, he murmured, but didn't move away. Or it could be someone asking if we're aliens. Ring, ring, ring. Damn. Ethan pulled back and answered. Walker. Chloe leaned into the sofa, trying to process what had almost happened. Her heart was still pounding like a runaway drum. Victoria? Ethan's voice changed completely. Chloe listened carefully. Victoria. That name came up often in company conversations. No, I don't have time to. Ethan stopped, listening to the other side. His face grew more serious by the second. Are you sure about that? More silence. I see. I'll think about it. He hung up and stared at the phone as if it were a bomb about to explode. Who's Victoria? Chloe asked, trying to sound casual. Victoria Sterling, former partner in the company. Also ex-other things. Ex-other things? Ex-girlfriend. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. A long time ago. Chloe felt a strange twist in her stomach. And what did she want? A warning about something. He stood up, restless. Chloe, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me. Okay. Do you have any secrets? Anything in your past that could be used against us? The question caught her off guard. What kind of secrets? Any kind. Debts, legal issues, complicated relationships. Ethan, the most scandalous thing in my past is being fired from a clothing store because I refused to sell a $500 dress to a woman who clearly couldn't afford it. Chloe stood as well. Why are you asking this? He didn't answer right away. He only looked at the phone again. Victoria said she has information about you. Information that could hurt us. What kind of information? She doesn't even know me. That's what worries me. Ethan stared at her. How would she get information about someone I just met? Chloe felt her stomach drop. You think she's investigating us? I don't think Victoria Sterling ever does anything by accident. He walked over to the window. And if she's calling to warn me about you, then she has a plan. Chloe finished his thought. Exactly. The romantic moment had completely evaporated, replaced by a very different kind of tension. What are we going to do? Ethan kept staring down at the city, but Chloe could see his reflection in the glass, and for the first time since she had known him, he looked genuinely worried. We're going to find out what she's up to, he said, before it's too late. Victoria Sterling had always known the day would come when she could take revenge on Ethan Walker. She just hadn't expected the opportunity to arrive wrapped in a blue dress and tasting like a strawberry milkshake. Her office in downtown Los Angeles was everything Ethan's was not. Dark, filled with plants, with an atmosphere that mixed elegance with something faintly threatening. Victoria sat behind a mahogany desk, arranging a pile of documents as if they were cards in a very dangerous game. The door opened, and Ethan stepped inside. tense as a violin string about to snap. Victoria. Ethan, darling. She rose, smiling like a cat that had just found an especially interesting mouse. Thank you for coming so quickly. Let's get straight to the point. What do you have on Chloe? Always so charming and direct. Victoria picked up a thick folder and held it out to him. Everything you need to know about your new fiancé is in here. Ethan hesitated before taking the folder. Victoria, if this is some kind of what? Revenge? She laughed, a sound both crystalline and cold. Ethan, I'm only worried about you. After all, we were partners for such a long time. Business partners, he corrected, opening the folder. Among other things. Ethan began to flip through the documents, his expression growing more serious with every page. Photos, bank statements, credit reports, employment records. Where did you get all this? You know I have my resources. Victoria leaned against the desk. The question is, do you really know this woman? Ethan kept reading, his face tightening with each page. 3 jobs lost in the past year, Victoria remarked casually. Credit card debt she can't pay, and look at this interesting part. She pointed to a specific page. She lied on her application to your company. Lied how? Non-existent work experience. References that don't exist. Ethan, she literally invented an entire resume. Ethan closed the folder, but didn't let it go. Why are you showing me this? Victoria stepped closer until she was right beside him, brushing his arm lightly. Because I care about you. I always have. Her voice softened. You remember why we ended, don't you, Victoria? You said I was too ambitious. That all I cared about was success and recognition. She walked toward the window. But look at what you're doing now. You hired a liar to pretend to be your fiancé just to impress the board. This is different, is it? Or are you doing exactly what you once criticized me for doing? She turned to face him. The difference is, when I lied, at least I was good at it. Ethan tucked the folder under his arm. Thank you for the information. Ethan, wait. Victoria moved closer again. I know you always wanted me to be different, more genuine, more like a normal person. She paused for effect. She's nothing but a milkshake stain on your reputation. Don't talk about her that way. Why not? Are you falling in love with your own lie? The question hung in the air like toxic smoke. Ethan left without answering. 2 hours later, Chloe walked into Ethan's office carrying coffee and a smile that vanished as soon as she saw his expression. Okay, from that face, either someone died or the company stock just crashed. Which one is it? Ethan sat behind his desk, Victoria's folder lying right in front of him. We need to talk. That's never a good sign. Chloe sat down but kept her tone light. What is it? Did they discover I'm actually an alien spy after all? Chloe? He pushed the folder toward her. Victoria brought me some information about you. Chloe opened the folder, her eyes widening as she turned the pages. Wow, she said after a moment. Looks like someone wrote an entire script about me. And look at that. It's not even a romantic comedy. Is it true? Which part? Chloe kept flipping through the papers. The part that says I got fired 3 times, or the part that says I made up half my resume? Both. Chloe closed the folder and looked straight at him. Okay, let's break this down. Yes, I was fired 3 times. Once for being late, once for arguing with a rude customer, and the 3rd time for refusing to lie about the quality of a product. She paused. And yes, I exaggerated a little on my work experience. A little? Fine, I exaggerated a lot. Chloe crossed her arms. Seriously, does that make me some kind of contract criminal now? Ethan didn't laugh. Why didn't you tell me? Because you never asked. Chloe leaned forward. Ethan, you hired me based on 3 conversations. If you had done a real interview, you would have found all this out. But you lied, and you're paying someone to pretend to be your fiancé. Chloe threw up her hands in frustration. We are literally building an entire relationship on lies, and you're upset because my resume has a few embellishments? Embellishments? Okay, lies. Small, harmless lies. Ethan leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. Victoria said you're only in this for the money. Of course I am. Chloe stood up. You offered $70,000. Who would refuse that? But that doesn't mean I'm not taking this seriously. They looked at each other in silence for several long seconds. Chloe could see doubt in his eyes, and for the first time since this whole act began, she felt like she might have lost the trust she had earned. So, she said finally, What happens now? Are you going to fire me for having an imperfect past? Ethan didn't answer right away. He just kept looking at her, as if trying to read her mind. And in that heavy silence, Chloe realized something between them had changed forever. Sometimes the only way to save your dignity is to leave the stage before you're thrown off it. And Chloe Martinez had learned that lesson in the hardest way possible. She folded her clothes with mechanical movements, packing them into the same worn suitcase she had brought 3 weeks ago, when she still believed her life could turn into a fairy tale. Tears slid silently down her face, but she refused to sob. "Idiot," she muttered to herself. "Idiot for thinking he could actually trust you." The tiny apartment she shared with 2 roommates felt even smaller now, the yellowed walls witnessing yet another questionable decision of hers. 3 knocks on the door made her stop packing. "Chloe, open the door." Ethan's voice on the other side made her heart race and break at the same time. "Go away, Ethan. I'm not leaving. We need to talk." "We already talked." She kept folding a blouse, pretending her hands weren't trembling. "And you made it very clear what you think of me." "Did I?" Chloe marched to the door, but didn't open it. "You stayed silent for 5 whole minutes after I admitted my past." 5 minutes, Ethan. That's an eternity in dramatic silence. "I was processing. You were judging." She rested her forehead against the door. "And you know what's funny? I actually thought you were different." "Chloe, please, open the door." "Why?" "So you can politely explain why I'm fired. Because I don't want you to leave." The sincerity in his voice almost broke her completely. "You never trusted me," she whispered. "From day one, you saw me as a risk to control, not as a person." Silence on the other side of the door. Chloe slowly unlocked it. Ethan stood there, his hair messy and an expression she had never seen before. Pure vulnerability. "All right," she said. "You have 5 minutes." "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "Do what?" "Trust someone." Victoria was right about one thing. I always expect people to disappoint me. Chloe crossed her arms. "And did I disappoint you?" "No. You scared me." "How?" Ethan stepped into the small apartment, looking around as if he had landed on another planet. "Because for the first time in my life, I wanted someone to be real. And when I found out about the lies, you were afraid everything was fake." "Exactly." Chloe sat down on the edge of the bed. "Ethan, you want the full truth?" "I took this job because I was desperate. Yes, for the $70,000. But also because," she paused, "because you seemed like someone who needed a person not afraid of you. And now? Now I think you need someone you can trust, and clearly that isn't me." Chloe stood up and grabbed the suitcase. "Where are you going?" "Home. To San Diego. My mom owns a flower shop, and she always said I could work there when I got tired of chasing impossible dreams in Los Angeles." "Chloe, don't do this." "Why not? What difference does it make? The auction is tomorrow, and you can find a replacement in a few hours." She walked past him toward the door. "What if I don't want a replacement?" Chloe stopped, but she didn't turn around. "Then you should have thought about that before you looked at me as if I were a criminal." The Greyhound bus station at 10 at night was exactly the kind of scene Chloe expected for the end of her fake love story. Flickering neon, falling rain, and she was sitting on a plastic bench waiting for the 10:45 bus to San Diego. "Look at this," she murmured to herself. "My role, dramatic woman at the bus station. All that's missing is the sad soundtrack." She rummaged through her bag looking for the tickets, and something fell onto the wet floor. The golden invitation to the charity auction. For a second, she imagined what it would be like to be there, arm in arm with Ethan, pretending to be happy in front of a room full of rich people. Then, she imagined him there alone, or worse, with some last-minute replacement. Passengers for bus 447 to San Diego, immediate boarding. Chloe stood up, grabbed her suitcase, and walked toward the bus. That's when she heard footsteps running behind her. "Chloe!" She turned and saw Ethan running through the station, completely soaked from the rain. "The bus is leaving," she shouted back. "Don't get on that bus." "Why not?" He stopped right in front of her, breathless. "Because I'm an idiot who doesn't know how to apologize. Final call for San Diego." Chloe looked at the bus, then at Ethan, then at the wet invitation in her hand. "It's too late, Ethan." "No, it's not." "Yes, it is." She handed him the invitation. "Good luck at the auction." Chloe stepped onto the bus without looking back. Through the fogged-up window, she saw Ethan standing in the rain, holding the golden invitation, as if it were the last piece of a dream that had just shattered. The bus pulled away, carrying her out of Los Angeles, and past a hidden photographer who captured every second of the dramatic goodbye, already imagining how much that photo would be worth in the morning tabloids. Ethan Walker had never stormed into anyone's office at 2 in the morning, but finding out you've been manipulated like a puppet has that effect on people. And Victoria Sterling was about to discover she had messed with the wrong man. Her office lights were on when Ethan arrived. Of course they were. Victoria always worked best at night when she could plot in peace. He didn't knock on the door. "Ethan," Victoria stood up from her chair, clearly surprised. "What are you doing here at this hour?" "I came for answers." He shut the door behind him, locking it. "And I'm not leaving until I get them." "Answers about what?" "About how you got such detailed information about Chloe in less than 24 hours. Victoria smiled, but there was tension in her eyes. "I have my resources, you know that." "What resources, Victoria?" Ethan stepped closer to her desk. "Private investigators don't work that fast, and they certainly don't get bank statements without legal authorization." "Maybe you're overestimating people's privacy." Ethan stopped right in front of the desk and noticed something. Her computer screen was open on a document editing program. "Can I see that?" "Ethan, you're being paranoid." He moved around the desk before she could cover the computer. On the screen, a document was open, a bank statement with Chloe Martinez's name, and the file's creation date, today, 11:47 p.m. "Interesting," Ethan murmured. "The statement was created 15 minutes ago." Victoria tried to close the program, but he was faster. "No." "Ethan, let me explain." "Then explain." He turned to face her. "Explain how you forged documents to convince me Chloe was a liar." Victoria leaned back in her chair, and for a moment, the elegant mask slipped completely. "Because you never gave me what I deserved." "What?" 5 years, Ethan. 5 years working by your side, building this company, being your partner in everything." Her voice rose. "And when the time came to give me the recognition I deserved, you chose to push me aside." "Victoria, you tried to sabotage me with the board. I discovered your secret meetings. Because you never saw me as an equal." She stood, slamming her hands on the desk. "It was always, Victoria can take care of this, or Victoria will handle that, but never, Victoria is my true partner." Ethan stared at her, pieces fitting together in his mind. "And when you couldn't destroy me professionally, you decided to destroy my personal life." "Your personal life?" Victoria laughed, a bitter sound. "Ethan, you hired an actress. Your entire personal life was a farce." "It was, until I started falling in love with her for real." The words came out before he could think. Victoria blinked, clearly not expecting that confession. "Falling in love? With an unemployed waitress? For a woman who had the courage to throw a milkshake at me and then defend me when no one else would." Ethan stepped closer to Victoria. "The only lie was thinking I could live without her." "Ethan, you're being ridiculous." "You know what's ridiculous? Spending 3 years planning revenge against someone who tried to protect you." He grabbed the mouse and started deleting the forged files. "You didn't destroy my trust in Chloe, Victoria. You made me realize that I trust her more than anyone." Victoria tried to stop him, but he had already erased everything. "It doesn't matter," she said, regaining her composure. "It's already too late. She's gone, remember? And tomorrow at the auction, when you show up alone, everyone will know your relationship was fake." Ethan stopped typing and looked at her. "Who said I'll show up alone?" "Ethan, she got on a bus to San Diego. By now she's probably still on the road." He looked at his watch. "The bus to San Diego takes 4 hours. And what do you plan to do? Run after her like some character in a romantic movie?" Ethan walked to the door but stopped before leaving. "Victoria, thank you. Thank you for sabotaging me so much that you made me realize I'm truly in love." He unlocked the door. "I couldn't have discovered that on my own." He left, leaving Victoria alone in the dark office. She stood there for a moment, processing what had just happened. Then she picked up the phone and dialed a number. "It's me. Change of plans for tomorrow." Her voice returned to that dangerous tone. "I want everyone to know Ethan Walker's relationship is a sham, And if he shows up with her at the auction, I want photos of every single moment they were pretending." She hung up and smiled, a smile that had nothing of defeat. "If you want to play a romantic movie, Ethan, I'll give you the ending you deserve." Meanwhile, Ethan was already in the car, driving down the dark road toward San Diego, with one certainty in his mind. No matter how long it took, he was going to find Chloe and tell her the truth. About Victoria, about the fake documents, and most of all, about the fact that he had fallen in love with the most genuine woman he had ever met. The only question was whether it was too late to fix what he had broken. When you're about to lose everything that matters, discovering that your ex-girlfriend is a manipulative psychopath becomes just a detail. Ethan Walker had one night to save his reputation, his company, and most importantly, the woman he loved. The Whitmore mansion in Hollywood Hills shone like a crystal palace against the starry sky. 300 guests moved through the illuminated gardens, champagne glasses in hand, waiting for the most anticipated charity auction of the year. Ethan arrived alone, which immediately sparked whispers among the guests. "Where's the mysterious fiancé?" one socialite murmured to another. "I heard it was all a lie," her friend replied, barely hiding her delight in the gossip. Victoria Sterling looked radiant in a red dress that cost more than a car, chatting animatedly with journalists near the main stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," the official host announced, "in just a few minutes we'll begin our charity auction. But first, we have a special surprise." Ethan felt his stomach sink. He knew Victoria too well not to recognize when she was plotting something. "We invite Victoria Sterling, one of the original founders of this initiative, to share a few words." Victoria walked up to the stage with a smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Thank you, Michael. I'm here today to talk about truth and transparency." She paused dramatically. "Values that, unfortunately, not everyone here shares." The murmurs began. "As many of you know, our dear Ethan Walker recently announced his engagement to a young woman. Interesting." Victoria smiled at the audience. "But what you don't know is that she saved me." Ethan's voice cut through the air like a blade. He had walked up to the stage without anyone noticing. Victoria froze. "Ethan, you shouldn't tell the truth." He stepped onto the stage and took the microphone from her hand. "You're right, Victoria. It's time to tell the whole truth." The audience fell into complete silence. "My relationship with Chloe Martinez began as a contract." Shocked murmurs rippled through the garden. "I paid her to pretend to be my fiancé." Victoria smiled, thinking she had won. "But what I discovered," Ethan continued, "is that she never pretended to be who she was. I was the one pretending to be someone I wasn't for years." "Ethan, stop this," Victoria whispered. "Chloe threw a milkshake at me the first day we met, and do you know what I thought? That finally someone had the courage to treat me like a normal human being." He turned to the audience. "She's not my shame. She's the only truth I've found." The crowd was split between shock and fascination. "And Victoria Sterling," Ethan turned to face her, "spent weeks forging documents to convince me Chloe was a liar, because she can't accept that some people are genuine." "That's ridiculous," Victoria tried to protest. "Is it? Then explain how you got bank statements that not even the bank itself had access to." Ethan looked straight at the cameras. "Explain it to the federal investigators who are already on their way." Victoria's face went pale. "Do you want the truth about Chloe Martinez?" Ethan turned back to the crowd. "She worked 3 jobs to pay her mother's bills. She donates blood every month at the public hospital. And when I froze during a presentation because I was nervous, she saved me without asking for anything in return." "Ethan?" "And I let her walk away because I was too much of a fool to trust the only person who never lied about who she really was." That's when he saw her. Chloe was standing at the garden entrance, still in her travel clothes, staring at him on stage as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. His heart stopped. "Chloe?" She walked slowly through the guests, who stepped aside to clear the way. When she reached the stage, she took the microphone the host handed her. "Hi," she said, her voice echoing across the garden. "Sorry about the outfit. If I had known this was live TV, I would have worn more lipstick." Nervous laughter from the crowd. "Ethan Walker," she continued, looking straight at him, "you are the most complicated man I've ever met. Rich, stubborn, and with a troubling tendency to wear very serious ties. More laughter, this time more relaxed. But you're also the only man who has ever defended me when I couldn't defend myself. Who trusted me when I didn't even trust myself. She paused. And who made me realize that sometimes destiny comes disguised as a spilled milkshake. Ethan stepped down from the stage and walked toward her. How did you come back? Oh, about that. Chloe smiled. I never made it to San Diego. I stayed at a roadside diner all night, eating pie and thinking about how stupid I am. You're not stupid. Yes, I am. Because I ran away instead of fighting for what I wanted. And what do you want? Chloe looked around at 300 people waiting for her answer, cameras capturing every second. I want a man who's not afraid of milkshakes, who laughs when I talk too much, and who lets me help when he needs it, even knowing I'll keep being complicated, especially for that. Ethan held her face in his hands. I love you, Chloe Martinez. Not the contracted version, not the fake fiancé. You, the woman who makes me want to be better than I am. I love you too, you dramatic CEO. When they kissed, the crowd erupted in applause. Camera flashes lit up the garden like fireworks. Victoria Sterling had quietly slipped out through the back door. And in the middle of all that chaos, Chloe pulled back from the kiss and whispered in Ethan's ear. So, do I still get the $70,000? He laughed so loud the microphone caught the sound. An hour after the most romantic scandal Hollywood Hills had ever witnessed, Chloe and Ethan finally escaped to the mansion's private terrace. Los Angeles glowed below them like an ocean of earthly stars. So, Chloe said, leaning on the balustrade, we just confessed our fake love that turned real in front of 300 people and half a dozen TV cameras. Ethan moved closer, still processing everything that had happened. Technically, it was 4 cameras, and 2 of them were live. Oh, much better. Now we're officially the most dramatic couple on the West Coast. She turned to face him. Congratulations, your mysterious CEO status is gone. Now you're the love-struck CEO shouting declarations into microphones. Do I regret anything? Chloe pretended to think seriously. Not the haircut, definitely the overly serious ties. The rest, she smiled, I think I can forgive. Ethan stepped closer, taking her hands. Chloe, I need to really apologize. Ethan? No, let me say it. You were right. I never trusted you completely, and it wasn't because you didn't deserve it. It was because I never learned how to trust anyone. Chloe squeezed his hands. And now you've learned? I'm learning with the best teacher. He paused. The one who throws milkshakes when necessary. Full service, she laughed, including lessons on how to be a normal human being. Ethan let go of her hands and, to Chloe's surprise, got down on one knee. Ethan Walker, don't tell me you're going to. Chloe Martinez, he interrupted, pulling a small box from his pocket. These past 2 months, you've turned my life upside down in every possible way. Oh my God, you're serious. Completely serious. You taught me that contracts don't create real connections, that being vulnerable is not weakness, and that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is admit we need someone. Chloe looked at the ring, simple, elegant, exactly what she would have chosen. Ethan? I don't want a contract, I want forever. He opened the box fully. Will you marry me? For real this time? Chloe looked at him, kneeling on the terrace with Los Angeles shining behind him, and felt as if she were inside a dream that finally made sense. Can I ask a few questions first? As many as you want. If I say no, will you hire another bride? Ethan laughed. Never again. You ruined that for me. Now I only accept women who throw drinks at me. And if I say yes, can I keep working? Because I don't intend to turn into a trophy wife who only goes to beauty salons. Actually, I was thinking of offering you a partnership. What kind of partnership? Remember the money raised at the auction? I want to start an organization for young entrepreneurs, and I need someone who knows how to speak like a normal person. Chloe felt her heart race. You're serious? Completely. You'd be perfect for it. And before you ask, yes, it would come with a salary. A real salary, not a hired fiancé salary. Last question, Chloe said, trying to keep a straight face. I'll say yes, only if the cake isn't CEO flavored. What flavor do you want? Strawberry. Obviously. Ethan stood, sliding the ring onto her finger. So it's a yes? It's a huge yes. Chloe held his face, but with one condition. What condition? In our company, no corporate jargon. If anyone says synergy, they get a warning. Deal. They kissed again, this time with no audience, no cameras, just the two of them and the city that had brought them together in the most unlikely way possible. "You know," Chloe said when they pulled apart, "I still can't believe all this started with a milkshake. The best accident of my life." Accident? Ethan Walker, that was pure destiny disguised as clumsiness. That was when they heard clapping from the terrace door. Finally, they turned and saw Marcus, Ethan's best friend, along with two other people Chloe didn't recognize. "Marcus?" Ethan frowned. "How did you—" "Man, you proposed on the terrace of one of the most heavily guarded mansions in Hollywood. There are security cameras everywhere." Marcus pointed to a small camera in the corner. "The event staff is watching everything downstairs." Chloe looked at the camera and waved. "Hi, everyone," he said. "Yes." Laughter and applause echoed from inside the mansion. "Well," Ethan sighed, "I guess our private life is officially over." "Relax," Chloe took his hand, admiring the ring. "If we're going to be a public couple, at least we'll be a fun couple." "Fun, Hal?" Chloe smiled, that mischievous smile he had learned to love. "Wait until you see what I've planned for our wedding." 6 months later, Chloe Martinez proved that a woman who once threw a milkshake at a CEO also knew how to organize the most talked-about wedding of the year. And of course, she made sure it was exactly her way. The Malibu beach was transformed into a dream setting, with white chairs arranged on the golden sand and an altar decorated with wildflowers that cost less than a traditional bouquet, but looked as if they came out of a fairy tale. Delicate lanterns swayed gently in the sea breeze, creating a magical glow that made the entire scene look like a romantic movie. 200 guests fanned themselves in the ocean breeze, including Walker Corporation executives who still couldn't believe their CEO had chosen a beach ceremony instead of a luxury ballroom. Among them, Chloe's mother chatted cheerfully with millionaire investors about her homemade pie recipes. "Nervous?" Marcus asked Ethan, who was adjusting his tie for the 5th time in 2 minutes. "Nervous? Me?" Ethan laughed, watching the company staff mingling with Chloe's friends who worked in coffee shops and stores. "I'm about to marry a woman who turned my entire life into a romantic comedy. Of course I'm nervous. But it's the good kind of nervous. The best kind." In the improvised tent that served as a dressing room, Chloe adjusted the dress she had chosen herself after trying on dozens of expensive options and deciding none of them felt like her. The simple, elegant gown from a local boutique cost less than the flowers at most socialites' weddings, but it made her shine. "Are you sure about this, dear?" her mother asked, pointing to the beach setting. "There's still time to rent a real hall." "Mom, the man I'm about to marry owns 3 event halls in Los Angeles. If I wanted pomp, I'd have pomp." Chloe smiled. "I want it to be genuine." The music began, not the traditional wedding march, but a soft version of At Last, played by a local quartet Chloe had discovered during a street performance. Everyone turned to watch her walk barefoot across the sand toward the altar, carrying a bouquet of sunflowers she had picked herself at a nearby farm. There was no traditional veil, only flowers woven into her brown hair that hung loose over her shoulders. Her smile lit up the whole beach, making even the most serious executives smile back. "Beautiful," Ethan murmured when she reached him, extending his hand to help her step onto the small wooden platform they had built in the sand. "Thanks. You don't look too bad yourself for a former corporate robot." She adjusted his tie, one of the few concessions to formality. "Although this tie is still too serious." "It's blue," he protested. "It's navy blue, almost black." The pastor smiled, clearly used to unconventional couples after 20 years of performing beach ceremonies. "We are here today to celebrate the union of Ethan and Chloe, 2 people who prove that sometimes love shows up in the most unexpected moments." "And the messiest?" Chloe whispered, drawing laughter from nearby guests. "Ethan," the pastor continued, "would you like to say your vows?" Ethan took a deep breath, looking at the woman who had turned his life upside down in every possible way. "Chloe, when you came into my life, I thought I needed someone to pretend to love me. But you taught me that I needed someone to teach me how to truly love." He held her hands, still amazed by how magical that simple touch felt. "You showed me that vulnerability is not weakness, that perfection doesn't exist, but that real connection is worth more than any contract I could ever sign." "You romantic?" she murmured, her eyes shining with tears she refused to let fall. You taught me that laughing at myself doesn't lessen my authority. It makes me more human. And that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is admit that we need someone. And Chloe? Chloe discreetly wiped the corner of her eye before beginning. Ethan Walker, she said, her voice carrying across the beach, I wasn't hired to save you, but I think I saved us. You showed me that I can be exactly who I am, messy, talkative, and addicted to milkshakes, and still be loved. Gentle laughter rippled through the guests. You taught me I don't need to pretend to be sophisticated to deserve good things, and that sometimes destiny has a very, very strange sense of humor. How so? Like, who would have thought that a spilled milkshake in a corporate lobby would turn into this? She gestured to the whole scene, the lanterns, the flowers, the friends and family gathered on the golden sand. From spilled milkshake to toasted milkshake. Toasted milkshake? Ethan frowned, while some guests who knew Chloe began smiling in anticipation. Chloe smiled mysteriously. You'll understand in a moment. After the exchange of rings, simple bands they had chosen together at a small jewelry shop instead of the ridiculously expensive options Ethan's assistant had suggested, and the official "I do" that echoed across the beach, Ethan kissed his wife as the guests applauded, and the Pacific Ocean provided the perfect soundtrack. Ladies and gentlemen, Chloe took the microphone from the pastor, clearly not done with the surprises of the day. Before dinner, we'd like to make an announcement. Ethan looked at her in surprise. They hadn't planned any announcement. 3 months ago, we launched the Martinez Walker Foundation for Young Entrepreneurs. Enthusiastic applause echoed across the beach, especially from company employees who had followed the entire process. And today, we are pleased to announce that our first group of beneficiaries will be 20 young people from underprivileged communities in Los Angeles, San Diego, and Riverside. The applause grew louder, and Chloe noticed some people wiping their eyes. Each one will receive $15,000 in seed capital, professional mentoring, and access to the network my husband spent 30 years building. She looked at Ethan. And now it will be available to people who truly need an opportunity. And to celebrate, Chloe continued, her eyes sparkling with mischief, instead of traditional champagne, we've prepared something special for the toast. As if by magic, waiters appeared from the side tents carrying silver trays with tall glasses filled with a familiar pink drink, topped with whipped cream and a cherry. Strawberry milkshakes for everyone. The crowd burst into laughter and even louder applause. Even the most conservative executives were laughing and reaching for their pink glasses. Chloe, Ethan whispered, shaking his head in admiration, you didn't do this. Yes, I did. And if anyone spills, consider it part of the wedding tradition. She picked up her own glass. After all, that's how it all began. Everyone grabbed their glasses, and Ethan stepped up to the microphone, still processing the fact that he was about to toast his wedding with a milkshake. A toast, he said, raising the pink glass toward the sky that was beginning to turn golden with the sunset, to the woman who taught me that sometimes the best things in life start with accidents. And sometimes, Chloe added, raising her glass too, accidents are really destiny doing its work, and doing it right. To accidents that become destiny, shouted the 200 guests at the same time, lifting their pink glasses against the California sky. At that exact moment, Marcus, trying to take an epic selfie while toasting, stumbled in the soft sand and spilled milkshake all over his white shirt. The entire beach erupted in laughter. Tradition, Chloe shouted, running to help him while laughing so hard she could barely stand. I think I'll need to hire you as my event planner, Marcus laughed, trying to clean the milkshake off his now pink shirt. Sorry, I already have a full-time job, Chloe pointed to Ethan. I'm married to my boss. Technically, Ethan pulled her close. We're partners now. Even better. As the sun set completely on the horizon, painting the sky purple, gold, and pink, perfectly matching the milkshake glasses, Ethan and Chloe danced on the sand to the sound of the waves softly breaking along the shore. So, he murmured in her ear as they slowly turned, what comes next? Next we're going to change the world, one young entrepreneur at a time, one milkshake at a time. She stepped back to look into his eyes. And who knows, maybe we'll even teach a few grumpy CEOs how to smile for real. you've already managed to teach at least one. They kissed again, this time as husband and wife, while their guests applauded and the Pacific Ocean stood as witness to the most unlikely love story Los Angeles had ever seen. And somewhere in the city, Victoria Sterling scrolled through the wedding photos on social media from her empty apartment, shook her head, and for the first time in months, truly smiled. Maybe, just maybe, they really did deserve that happy ending. After all, some stories are so absurd they can only be true. And sometimes the spilled milkshake is exactly what we need to find the love of our life. What did you think of Ethan's transformation? From a cold, intimidating CEO to a man in love who toasted his wedding with a milkshake? Share your thoughts in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to receive more touching stories like this one. See you next time.